There are so many Black people in this country, people of color, who have been traumatized by the sheer number, not just in terms of George Floyd, but the sheer number of videos that we have to relive over and over again, seeing unarmed Black men being shot by police. How did you get over that resentment towards white people?
Well, it's a process. First and foremost, I grew up in a family that emphasized unconditional love, forgiveness, and service to humanity. So by having those teachings around me, although I went through those phases, they were able to bring me back when I had some experiences that were different than what my mind was perceiving. And so I had a gentleman in the middle of an interview that I did about my father and the loss of my father. He was a white gentleman who said, "Can I give you a hug?" And at the time, it was, during that phase where I really hated white people and especially white men. And I did it because I've been, my mother taught me, to respect people. And so I allowed him to hug me in the middle of the show. And it was one of the most genuine hugs I had ever received. Now, some people may think that's trite, but it did something to me internally. It broke my tendency to do the broad stroke that all white people are a certain way, and to really begin to look at the humanity of people, and to remember the teachings of my father, even that there's good in the worst of us and there's bad in the best of us. And so processing through that, and then, learning more about my father's nonviolent philosophy and methodology, and now being the head of the institution, has really helped me. Do I not have moments, though, of being angry and upset? Of course. But because I knew that I couldn't stay in this place of resentment and hate, because not only was it not beneficial personally, it was not helpful in terms of me being able to be in a constructive place to move the issue forward. And so that's part of, my process. And I know everybody can't go through that or may not go through that. But I do challenge people to understand what my father said, that hate, and that's hate even for people who hurt you, even if it's reactionary because they did something bad to you, is too much of a burden to bear, that it affects your organs, it affects your system. And it's like, drinking poison, but expecting the other person to be harmed by it when it really harms you. You can be more effective by channeling those emotions into constructive action. And that's what nonviolence is about, and what we teach and train people in at the King Center in Atlanta.
Bernice King, I want to say that I love and revere your father. I love him more than I ever loved him in my life, whatnot. And one of the greatest things that hurts me deep in my heart is that he was unable to get out of the situation that led to his death. He was unable to return to his family and properly parent his children. And I can say this because I've listened to you for years betray this man. I don't know what your mom told you, but your father thought very differently when, right before he was murdered. Right before he was killed in a conspiracy, which saw several members of his own team rise to prominent ranks in the country in the supposed Black community, which has been suffering ever since. It was a vast betrayal of your father. All right? Maybe this is why you do this today and whatnot. And I think you could be a little more lucid or candid about that and whatnot. Maybe we could understand you better or whatnot. But like, nobody has lost as much as you have and still alive from the civil rights era. You lost your father. You lost the educator, a man of God. And I think I weep for Dr. Martin Luther King when I hear you make statements like this. Okay, I weep for him because he deserved to be able to come home to his family and parent his children and live his life into old age with his daughter and shit. The same goes for Malcolm X, and Fred Hampton wasn't even given a chance to really get out of the gate before they killed him off. And they left the community ripe for the picking and shit, with people like yourself and shit, bootlicks, coons, okay? Bernice King, you are a coon, man, at the highest order and shit, to sit on a national stage and shit, on an international stage, and fix your mouth to talk about a post-racial society and shit, where a hug is all we need to overcome 500 years of bullshit, okay? I don't care how any white people feel about our struggle and shit, because they're not us. Alright? I don't care about that shit, okay? None of the black people with common sense who's lived in this goddamn country all their lives gives a shit about what white people think, or you by proxy and shit, okay? There is things that need to be done, okay? You can't just put a band-aid on a fucking hole in a sinking ship, alright? These people have a mental illness, and it ain't going away. It's not going away anytime soon and shit. And you're just helping to perpetuate a dying system. By proxy, you're helping to perpetuate a dying race. You're not helping white people by being false tolerant and shit, okay? You know what your father went through. You know what you went through as a kid. People were trying to kill your dad continuously, discredit him. They talked about him cheating on your mother and a bunch of other stuff, okay? The CIA and the government were calling up your parents, terrorizing them on a daily basis. Your home was even bombed and shit. You have PTSD. I don't know what kind of individual counseling you got. No one ever seems to ask you or your other siblings what kind of counseling you had for that. What did your mom go through? And for you to sit up on a national stage and shit on your father's dream like that. I'm here to tell you a shit. Here to tell you. Your father said that he had taken and led his people into a burning house and shit. And your words and your actions bear that out to be what we know is the truth. Alright? You are a disgrace to your name. You are a disgrace. And I can't stomach the sight of you. So what I'm thinking is that I will not make any more videos. This will be the one and only video I'll make about you, because you personally disgust me, okay? You disgust me and shit, okay? You are helping to perpetuate a system that killed your own father and shit on his dreams. A system that took your father's likeness and twisted his words to create a docile facsimile and shit used to beat black people over the head for over 50 years and shit now. For over 50 years. While we went stagnant in every category. Okay, stagnant and shit. Alright, I don't want to get into it and shit, but I do not care what white people think about our situation and shit. It's none of their business other than doing what they need to do to fix the problem and shit. Alright? What I mean by that is that it's the same thing that got your dad killed and shit. He said he was going to Washington and he wasn't leaving without his check.
This is a copy of his first newspaper. He just put out his own newspaper. He was trying to speak to the nation about poor people, and he got one copy out. We've been trying to get a newspaper out for 3 years. We just, got enough equipment. These are his belongings, shaving powder. We had been invited over to a local minister's house for a soul food dinner. And
you're just leaving for dinner?
Just leaving for dinner. And he usually walk out a door. He's usually dressed and he usually go, because he's usually always in a hurry. But he walked out there and held over, and the fellow who's been driving us around since we've been in Memphis told him, said, "Doc, you better get your coat." He said, "Okay," and he stood up there a minute or two, and I guess just thing of destiny, I guess, making, he just was a target there for a minute or two, because he was fixing to come back in and get his coat on. All of this side of his face was shot off. But it wasn't long before policemen was all around. Then I wonder whether America had really lost its last chance. This day will be the most unforgettable day in my whole life. It's a day that I still have not believed. I still not can believe somebody's crazy enough to kill Dr. King, who wouldn't hurt anybody, but loved everybody, and really gave his life to the salvation of this nation.
enlighten us, and he kind of made me angry, because at that time I'd been in jail 85 times, and I could name you some 15 or 20 of my friends had been murdered in these various demonstrations. And Dr. King kept saying to us, we have gone around the mountain long enough. Now it's time to come in and enhance the land. Now it's time to come in and enhance the land, enhance the land. And I finally said, I don't understand what you mean, Dr. King. I don't follow you. I get the impression you're saying, out of all the beatings and the jailings and the blood spilling, all of the civil rights activities, we have only been on the perimeter of this civil rights movement. And he said, Jose, you held it longer than I thought you could, but that's exactly what I mean. And he went on to say that black people in America will never, never be free. Never. Just by wiping out racism. If black people wiped out every vestige of racism in America and totally integrated every aspect of American life, they would not be free. If black people will never be free, and he said it with such an emphasis, until we control our fair share of the economy, that our society was economically driven. The politicians make the laws, and they implement or they supervise the implementation of the laws. But these politicians do what those boys with that money said do. And that's when he said that we must shift from the civil rights demands into the economic demands. He also said in that meet that if I do not change, they're going to get me. But I cannot change because I know I'm pursuing God's will. And he said that when they get me, they're going to be very surprised, because get me will not stop nothing. He said, that's what I want you all's commitment. Because the power to free black people is not in Martin Luther King Jr., it's in this team that we put together. And I want you all to promise me that if they get me, or when they get me, you'll never let them break up this team. And I guess like Jesus was talking, he told us what they would do to try to break up the team after they murdered him, after he was gone. He said they're going to try to give some of you all the most prestigious and highest paying jobs in politics. Don't take it. We're going to try to give some of you all the most prestigious and highest paying jobs in private industry. Don't take it. They're going to try to get some of you all to start your own national organization, become competitive with SCLC. Don't take it. And we promised them that. Of course, we didn't keep the promise, because that's what failed SCLC. The person that was in King's inner circle deserted the organization after his death.